Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of X-Men the Animated Series, Season 3, Episode 17, The Dark Phoenix, Part 4, The Fate of the Phoenix. This originally came out November 26th, 1994. So we jump in right where we left off, and Lilandra and the Imperial Guard go after Jean, but this is where Professor X proposes this duel of honor that he knows in the Shi'ar tradition cannot be refused. Now, what was really cool is when Lilandra talks about how a serious threat it is for Phoenix to just be still alive and that she could destroy all the galaxies, that there's a little cameo in this montage of some Star Wars creatures in there and a xenomorph from Alien. So I thought that was really cool to see that in X-Men animation. I also love during all of this, even when they're on the Shi'ar ship, that Rogue is still carrying Professor X, and then when Lilandra brings Professor X to talk to the Kree and the Skrulls, he has all of a sudden this Shi'ar rental chair for him. I thought that was so great. But the Kree and the Skrulls just give approval, and the Skrull character is just like, yeah, as long as the X-Men lose, I'm cool with it. What's also great is that when Storm questions if what they're doing is the right thing to Beast, he calls her Aurora. This is the first time we actually hear her name said in the show. Kind of wild because this is episode 17 of season 3. Just really cool to finally hear it. And Beast has a great line here where he's like, Jean has committed no crime, injured no one, asking her to be destroyed to prevent the possible future crimes of another and how that is wrong. And he makes a great point. And he calls Lilandra out saying that the trial by combat is an act of war. It is mocking justice. And Beast is all about justice, so this does justice to the character. Now, I like this scene too where X probes Lilandra's mind and he's like, we must not let these events wither our love. But then he says, help me contain Phoenix. And she's like, really? Because she was liking what he was saying, then he has to bring that up. And she basically tells him, I'm an Empress now, okay? I gotta protect my people above all else. So Lilandra's a little high on the power since we last saw her. And then Cyclops ponders if he would act any different than Lilandra in her position. And at this moment, Jean appears as Marvel Girl, which I really love to see her original outfit from the comics. That was such a nice surprise and really cool. And she said, it's how you first knew me, it felt right. Like I said in a previous review, when they had shown in a previous episode the original X-Men team on the tape in their original costumes, how cool it would be if the MCU tries to do an animated series around the original team from the beginning, like a prequel to X-Men animated series. Now, Jean fears the danger of the Phoenix herself. She's like, are we doing the wrong thing? And she shows Scott her fears of what would happen if the Phoenix fully unleashes and attacks her friends in the world in general. And I love during this montage where they bring back those real fire effects we've seen in the show a couple times. And she says, am I worth the risk? Just a great line here. And then we get to see this amazing action sequence, one of the best in the show ever, when we see the Duel of Honor happen between the X-Men and the Imperial Guard, and they do it on the moon. And a really cool moment, like always, for Storm, when Storm and Gambit are fighting Earthquake, and she's like, controlling the dirt is nothing compared to one who controls wind and rain. And Rogue has a standout episode for her when she fights Starbolt. It's great. She's literally one of the shots flying like an X-Wing in A New Hope, which I thought was sick. And she's like, you're as fast as a swamp bug on a hot skillet. Just a classic Rogue line again. And then Gladiator shows up to Rogue and he's like, you know you can't match my power. And she's like, oh, come on, give a gal a little credit, and slams him into the wall. How, can someone not like Rogue for moments like this? And more great writing happens when Professor X sees the X-Men are losing, as does Lilandra, and she says, the part of me that is woman wants to comfort him with every breath that I take, but an empress must be made of steel even at the cost of her heart. So much great moments in this episode with the writing. Now, Jean and Scott hide, and then they go for it against the whole guard, which was really cool, and to really see how powerful they both are. But Scott gets knocked down, and then that awakens the Phoenix. And then Professor X revives the X-Men. He's like, the Phoenix just must be stopped. And now he's thinking that Lilandra was right. And he's ordering them to destroy the Phoenix. And I love Phoenix at this moment just picks up the Gladiator and throws him. And I don't think we ever see him again. So you're like, is he okay? Because she literally just destroyed him. And when X gives the final order to Scott to destroy the Phoenix and command the X-Men to do that, I love that at one point Beast has this random gun he found that he shoots at Phoenix. And this big moment happens where Jean pleads for Scott to put her out of her misery, stop her and the Phoenix, and he still just can't do it. Now, the big emotional, crazy moment that you're paying off this whole 4-part saga is when Jean is able to bring the Shi'ar weapons online herself and attacks herself. And she's like, I love you, Scott. Part of me will always be with you. and she destroys herself, and it's very sad. And X is like, she's gone, you've won. He says it to Lilandra, and she has tears in her eyes, which is a big moment. And I love they didn't even put dialogue on that moment, just showing you that Lilandra still has a soul there. She hasn't totally lost herself, and she feels for this. Just beautiful. But then the Phoenix itself returns and says, to save all that exists, I became one with Jean Grey. We preserved the crystal, but I discovered an element to humans called emotions, but I lost my way. Yeah, you think? And she says, now that the fire in Jean Grey has been extinguished, I am as I was, guardian of creation. So now the Phoenix is back to basically its normal ways. But she says the flame in Jean is no more, can only be rekindled by taking flame from another. But then she says it can be taken in small portions from multiple, but your own flame will be diminished for whatever you offer. And this has the best moment of the whole show to me so far, when they don't even hesitate and Storm says, we understand and we accept. They grab hands and circle around Jean, and it revives Jean. It's beautiful that they're all giving a part of themselves to revive someone they love, and they will lose part of themselves in that. Just amazing. Best moment of the show. I don't know if this will be top. And then when Charles is back trying to telepathically talk with Lilandra, she basically ghosts him here and is like, I gotta focus on being an empress, breaking his heart a bit. And the X-Men are safe at the mansion. Cyclops gives Jean a kiss, which she rightfully deserves now to rest in bed after everything she's been through and willing to sacrifice herself like that. So to me, this is the best episode yet, and I really am doubting this one will be top, but we'll see. But I absolutely loved it. It passes Enter Magneto for me, season 1 episode 3, which I had at a 9.5. This one I'm going to give a 9.7. The writing was spectacular. The action sequence on the moon was incredible, and that emotional beat at the end with Jean sacrificing herself but then having the X-Men give a little of themselves to revive her is just perfect. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. And hit that sub button. It'll help in so many ways. It's a brand new X-Men channel. I'm trying to grow it, and I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.